Al Capone, the main mobster in Chicago's history, a murderer, bootlegger, and racketeer who ended up committing tax crimes. Thanks to numerous television series, feature films, and documentaries about him, as well as his unproven involvement in the horrifically bloody crime of the Valentine's Day Massacre, he is perhaps the most famous gangster in the world. Although his big mafia career lasted only a few years, from the mid-1920s to May 1932, when the Chicago robber was sentenced to 11 years in prison for tax evasion. In prison, the mafia boss's already poor health was undermined, which led to his early release in the fall of 1939. However, only the shadow of Capone, who was once feared by the whole country, was released. Syphilis, gonorrhea, stroke, pneumonia, and cardiac arrest on January 22, 1947. Joe Adonis, the closest associate and assistant of the legendary Lucky, on whose orders he participated in the murder of Joe Masuria. In addition to contract killings, Adonis, the dandy and handsome Giovanni Dodo, changed his name so that no one would doubt who in New York is a relative of the Mediterranean god of love, was involved in racketeering, gambling, alcohol smuggling, prostitution, leading Manhattan's most powerful gang, the Broadway Gang. Despite the huge number of crimes, Joe Adonis avoided arrest for a long time, going to jail only in 1951, after which the bandit was deported from the United States, having managed to prove that he was born in Italy and therefore had never been an American citizen. Here, in Milan, Italy, Giovanni Dodo, born, died when his heart stopped during a police interrogation. Adonis outlived his friend and colleague Luciano by 10 years, passing away in the fall of 1971. Lucky Luciano, a legend of global criminal history, a quirky, cunning, unscrupulous criminal who is considered the founding father of organized crime in the United States, gave rise to the current Genovese clan. He was first imprisoned in 1916, after which he finally chose a criminal career for himself, went through a long dramatic path from an ordinary mafia fighter to its leader and reformer. His nickname is Lucky Guy. Charles got it when he managed to survive an attack by competitors who kidnapped a gangster, took him to a quiet place, and beat him to a pulp. Charlie will not make such mistakes again. He will always be the first to strike, leaving no chance for enemies to escape. The famous episode from the film The Godfather, when the killers simultaneously eliminate all the enemies of the character Al Pacino, is taken from the biography of this criminal genius, who in the early 1930s rose to the rank of the main boss of the mafia. Even after being imprisoned once again, the Lucky Man continued to lead a criminal empire and helped the U.S. Armed Forces conduct a successful military operation in Sicily in 1943, for which he received amnesty and was exiled from the country. He settled in Italy, died of natural causes in the winter of 1962, which is extremely rare for representatives of the gangster craft. Albert Anastasia, the founder of the Gambino family, one of America's most violent gangsters. When Lucky took over the top spot of America's criminal life, his first reform innovation was the division of labor to increase efficiency. Among others, the liquidation department was formed, the so-called Murder Corporation, which was headed by Albert Anastasia, aka Umberto Anastasio, nicknamed the Mad Hatter. The killer committed his first murder back in 1921, for which he received a death sentence. But the high-quality work of the lawyers, along with the failure of all witnesses to attend the court hearing during the retrial, led to the cancellation of the verdict and the release of the gangster, where new crimes and the post of head of the Murder Corporation awaited the killer. Like many other representatives of the American Mafia, Albert was born and raised in Italy, from where he sailed to the Promised Lands. In gratitude for his exemplary service in the armed forces and participation in World War II, America granted the bandit citizenship. When Lucky, Dodo, and other crime bosses of Italian origin were expelled from the country, Anastasio managed to stay in the States, founded his own family, the new leader of which eventually ordered the liquidation of the founder. The mobster was shot dead in a barbershop on October 25, 1957. Frank Costello, the so-called prime minister of the criminal underground empire, a business partner and a leading member of the Lucky clan, who became the head of the organization when the leader went to prison, perhaps the most intelligent, balanced, cold-blooded criminal, who received the position of consigliere for his ability to speak and listen. He moved to the United States as a 4-year-old, joined a street gang as a 13-year-old, and has been prosecuted since he was 17. At 24, 1915, he was imprisoned for 6 months for illegally carrying weapons. After being released, Costello, in his own words, never took up arms again. Acquaintance with the main criminal celebrities opened numerous doors to the future consigliere, provided the necessary opportunities, which Costello took full advantage of. Politicians, judges, and police officials were happy to communicate with the mafia consigliere because Frank dressed, talked, and behaved not like a standard thug, but like a skilled negotiator who was interesting to deal with. His talent for diplomacy helped the criminal survive gang wars, get out of trouble with the law, and successfully retire in the 1950s, retaining his gambling income and quietly living out his retirement. He died of a heart attack in the winter of 1973. Carmine Galante, the gangster who led the Bonanno family, is an extremely cruel, uncompromising, bloodthirsty mobster who has more than 100 personally executed murders to his credit. He had been in the correctional system since the age of 10, having begun to show criminal tendencies in the first grades of school. He was convicted several times of various minor crimes, until in 1930 he participated in an unsuccessful robbery and a shootout with the police, which resulted in the injury of a little girl who happened to be a bystander. For this crime, Galante received 12 years and was released in 1939, continued his gangster career, gradually rising to the status of a respected bandit. He received a prison sentence several more times, was released again, where he was liquidated on July 12, 1979, shot dead along with the guards on the terrace of his favorite restaurant. Vito Genovese. Don Vito, the boss of bosses, the leader of the clan of his name, the colleague, the closest assistant of the lucky one, who received the mafia throne of a comrade when he was convicted. Genovese's rise began with the murder of Masuria and continued for the next decades, when competitors were eliminated, and comrades ended up in prison or hid from the law by moving to their historical homeland. Don Vito himself did not escape a similar fate, having gone to Italy in 1936, having spent a whole decade there. When Genovese returned to America, he immediately began to regain his lost positions, competing with Guarino Moretti for the title of second man in the mafia. Costello remained the first until his retirement. But when this happened, Vito had already been sentenced to a long term for drug trafficking, which in the case of his advanced age, 63, actually meant life imprisonment. Of the required 15, the drug dealer served 10, dying in a prison hospital on February 14, 1969. John Dillinger, an odious robber, and murderer. In the 1930s, he received the loud nickname Public Enemy No. 1. The Italian-American mafia was involved in smuggling, gambling, bootlegging, racketeering, drug trafficking, prostitution, and tried not to shine in front of representatives of law and order. Pure American Johnny D. robbed banks, killed policemen who got in the way, for which he quickly turned into the country's main bandit, Public Enemy No. 1. Carjacking was the first crime for a young man who escaped criminal prosecution by joining the Navy. However, the bully did not like Army life, so John served only 5 months and escaped from the Army, returning to crime. Robbery, prison, amnesty, another gang raid. This time it's a bank robbery, which will become the signature style of Dillinger and his associates. The FBI organized a special group to arrest or eliminate the killer raider, who avoided meeting with lawmen until July 22, 1934. That day, John and his girlfriend decided to go to the cinema, where a team of federal agents was waiting for the robber at the exit. The feds did not offer the criminal to surrender. They riddled him with bullets and ended the terror of the odious criminal. Fred Barker, the youngest son of the famous Mama Barker, the leader of the brutal Barker Carpus gang, famous for a series of brutal robberies and kidnappings. The gang operated throughout the 1920s and 1930s until a frosty January day on the 16th of 1935, when a squad of FBI agents attacked one of the houses of the criminal family, during which Ma Barker and son Fred were shot dead. If you love vintage photographs and want to immerse yourself in the atmosphere of the past, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Here you will find unique snapshots, interesting stories, and captivating facts about celebrities and events that have left their mark in history. Support us with a like so we can continue sharing this amazing collection with you.